Hey everybody, this is the Beardy of the Beardy and the Baldy channel, bringing you my review of X-Men Apocalypse. I apologize if I'm talking fast through this video. This is probably the fifth time I've attempted to record it, and I'm having some significant technical difficulties, and probably should just stop for tonight, but I'm going to plow through it anyway because, um, you know, survival of the fittest apocalypse. Only the strong survive. There it is. So I'm going to be strong and survive making this video because you all are desperate to know what I think about this movie. I just know it. Um, I went into this movie with mild expectations. My girlfriend had seen it a couple days before I did, and she loved it. Um, knowing it was a Bryan Singer movie, was not expecting to enjoy the movie. I liked it more than I thought I would, but it's definitely not one I probably feel the need to ever watch again. Definitely not going to buy it. It is not changing my mind about the X-Men movies in general. But I will say, without X-Men back in 2000, Blade in 99, Spider-Man in 2002, all movies that I really have no interest in watching again, we wouldn't have the modern era of comic book superhero movies that we do. So they did lay a lot of groundwork, and despite my dislike of what Bryan Singer has done to the X-Men, they have, the first movie did lay a lot of groundwork for the stuff we can have today. So on that regards, I got to give him some credit. But at the same time, knowing that 16 years ago when they were making the first X-Men movie, he adamantly told his cast not to read the comics. That was a big sign to me back then. Even then, that frustrated me because it's like, I understand it's his vision and he's telling his story, and other directors have done this as well. But when you embrace the characters as they've been written through history, maybe not the exact stories they're telling, you can still inform your performance off of that. So that said, there's a lot of disappointing character things in relating to the comics, but I'm going to try not to focus on that because obviously the movies and the comics are different. And if I just wanted the stuff that I liked from back in the day, I'll just go pick up one of my omnibuses over there and read my X-Men and be happy with that. But so most of my critiques are going to be attempting to base on what I don't like in the movies. And that said, Apocalypse, you cannot think about any of the other X-Men movies while watching this movie. First of all, are we in a new timeline? Is this an alternate reality? Who knows what Days of Future Past did? I don't know. They've not made it clear if this is an alternate timeline or what, because we've got a new Angel who is 20-something years earlier than the previous Angel, who was set in the 2000 era. This is set in the 80s. There's a whole repeated segment of X2 where Stryker attacks the X Mansion and kidnaps a bunch of mutant kids. Just like X2, only, 20-something years earlier. Yeah. So there's a lot of things that frustrate me in this movie and how they connect to the other movies. Havoc is back. We haven't seen Havoc since First Class, which was only 5 years ago, but 20 years have passed in the movies, and he looks identical to because it's the same actor, so clearly he does not look too much older. But he would be about 40 now, unless this is a different timeline and First Class never actually happened. I don't know. it's it's not one of those ones that it's fun to think about this stuff, unlike Back to the Future and Back to the Future 2 and what timeline and like that stuff. That was kind of what made those movies interesting or added to the interesting things about them. But this, every time I think about any of the other movies, it drives me crazy. That said, Apocalypse himself, played by Oscar Isaac, was incredible. He looked amazing. His performance was great. Apocalypse was the villain that he needed to be, and I never thought I would see Apocalypse on screen taken seriously, and he was. So his whole big thing is he starts off in the beginning of the movie back in ancient Egypt 5,000-6,000 years ago. His ritual of transferring his consciousness and powers into a younger mutant to kind of leapfrog through time. is thwarted by an uprising of slaves in Egypt, and his four horsemen are taken out uh, as the pyramid collapses on him, and he's trapped until modern times in the 80s when the movie is set, which they really, really want you to know this movie's set in the 80s. I think there's at least one character, background or main character, who focuses every possible subculture genre of clothing and music pops up throughout the movie. Uh, but there it is. There was some of it was fun. Some of the 80s stuff was fun. I liked it. It just felt very heavy-handed at times. It's just like all the X's Bryan Singer makes sure to get in the movie. Sometimes they're subtle in the background. Sometimes it's like the end of this movie where Magneto just throws two giant steel eye beams and form a giant X in front of the characters because yeah. um so he wakes up in modern times, Apocalypse. He's resurrected in modern times. The first thing he does is goes out and finds four new horsemen, and they set about their plan to wipe the earth of humans and their systems and weapons and things that he doesn't like, their technology and all this stuff. And he recruits Storm, a young Storm, which actually was one of the highlights of the movie, until she joined Apocalypse, and then she just glared at the camera and clawed her hands and made lightning and grumpy faces. Psylocke, who looks like the late 90s Psylocke, and Angel becomes Archangel, and his transformation was actually really cool. And then Magneto, because Magneto lost his wife and young daughter during the course of this movie, which as soon as you knew he had a wife and daughter, you knew they were going to die, because that's what happens to Magneto. And while Fassbender delivered a great emotional performance, that scene was when his wife and daughter die, and he retaliates and kills the police who came to investigate. It was a completely lackluster moment for me, because it was like there was like this dramatic silence and kind of this slow music and slow motion and screaming and clutching them as they died, and I was just kind of like, normally that stuff gets to me, but it was just so obvious, and I don't know. It's been so played out with Magneto at this point that I don't know. I bet the only thing they could have done more repetitive with him was take him back to the concentration camps. Oh, wait, they do that too. I mean, he goes back to visit, and not trying to dismiss or discredit the severity of what that time in history was, but in regards to this movie and with that character, it's just so overdone. Just like the X's and the, hey, we're in an 80s movie. We're in an 80s movie. Look, we're playing a Metallica song. Oh, look, we're referencing Return of the Jedi. And the three kids that go see Return of the Jedi, Jean, Nightcrawler, and Cyclops, they come out, and Jean makes the comment about, like, well, everyone knows the third movie's the worst. No, they don't. Not in 1983, they don't. And, that dig, A, is inaccurate, because Return of the Jedi is freaking awesome. B, you're insulting your predecessor, X-Men Last Stand, which is kind of a low blow to insult a movie within your own franchise. You're also insulting yourself, because it is the current movie. I mean, I don't. Is Bryan Singer just sitting there laughing? I don't know. I mean, it's criticizing itself as being the worst of the current trilogy. I don't know how else to interpret that. It's just, blah. So Apocalypse gets his horsemen. They're going to destroy the world. Magneto is going to use his new amplified magnetic powers, because of his association with Apocalypse, to destroy cities around the world and kill, hundreds and millions of humans. And now the Horsemen, unlike the comics, they have not gone through, other than Archangel, they've not gone through like a transformation. Their powers are amped up, but in the comics you always got the sense that there was like this pure evilness resided in them, that there was almost like a possession going on of Apocalypse, like they were like pure evil versions of these characters, and they couldn't resist, except for the heroes that do resist, and that made it awesome when they fought their way free of Apocalypse's control. You don't really get that in this movie, which, okay, that's fine. But Magneto is killing hundreds and thousands and millions of people by destroying like metal all around the world, right? How do you bring him back from that? He can't say, "Oh, I was under Apocalypse's control." I mean, it doesn't even do that. At the end of the movie, at the end of the day, they beat Apocalypse, and everybody goes home to the X Mansion that was blown up by William Stryker when he came to steal the kids. Um, Magneto's there helping Jean Grey rebuild the X Mansion because A, they're both master architects and know how to rebuild houses, and B, everybody's just kind of like, "Hey, Magneto, you just killed all those people. If you help us rebuild the X Mansion, you're totally cool in our books." What? I mean, I'm a big proponent of forgiveness and moving on and grace and all that, but he just killed thousands of people, if not more. And he's just there floating in the air, smiling, picking up stacks of lumber or nails, and Jean Grey's picking up the lumber with her mind. I don't know. It just totally just smacked in the face of any life that was lost. Forget complaining about Metropolis and Superman and Zod and Man of Steel. I mean, this was Magneto actively destroying lives, and everybody's cool with it at the end of the movie. Not this guy. Magneto's a villain, yes. He's not a villain that gets to come hang out with the kids at the X Mansion after this. Okay? I mean, why would any... Anyway, all that said, there are great performances from everybody. Quicksilver, he stole the scene again. Every time he shows up, he's just great. Except there's this whole plot line with him acknowledging that Magneto's his dad and wanting to tell him, and he never does. It's literally what drives him to do what he does in this movie, and he doesn't follow through with it. Maybe because he sees his dad being a murdering psychopath. But Quicksilver was great. Another great performance. He looked great. I was completely wrong about him in Days of Future Past when I saw his costume. He delivered a great performance in that and in this, so I really liked him. Young Storm was great again until she sided with Apocalypse. Oscar Isaac was great as Apocalypse himself. Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy, again, they delivered great performances as Magneto and Xavier, but the storytelling is just so blah. We even get a cameo from Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman? Hugh Jackman, that's who. Oh my gosh. In the whole Stryker abducts the children to Alkali Lake, just like the plotline of X2, only 25 years early, Jean Grey releases something out of a cage, and it ends up being Wolverine in the full Weapon X, with the helmet and the wires and the tubing and all stuff. And that was really cool, except for the fact that Jean Grey let him out. Like, that totally steals some thunder from Wolverine. He doesn't get out himself. It's because of her. It's now this extra connection with her and him and the triangle with Cyclops, which is just so overdone. I'm done with that story. I mean, because where's it's going to go? We all know that Old Man Logan or whatever the next Wolverine movie is going to be Hugh Jackman's last movie, probably. So why did we even bother setting that up? And it's just another thing to make Jean Grey. I don't even know if I'm using this right. Are they Mary suing her here? Are they making her just this ultimate mutant? Because by the end of the movie, she goes full bore Phoenix, not Dark Phoenix, but anyway. I will say Nightcrawler had some great moments. Seeing him like bamfing around at the end, saving people, was really cool. That moment was great. I really like Nightcrawler in this movie. Cyclops, again, another character that they don't write any more than the one-dimensional kind of stick in the mud that he is always portrayed as. And he's not always been my favorite character. Well, he's not my favorite character. But I can appreciate there's a lot more to him than what they do in these movies. Anyway, my time is about done here, so I'm going to go. Stay to the end credits if you want to see a tease for Mr. Sinister, potentially coming in another movie. And I don't know. We'll see where all this goes. I'll be back next week with a review of Warcraft. Peace.